lithium mining in just built Liverpool, right? If I go out there on social media to begin to, say it probably on Twitter, some people will be like, what's this guy talking about? Like, what evidence do you have, right? This is an actual fact. People will say, this guy is capping. You understand?
Mm-hmm.
But I can tell you for a fact that there are Gen Zs now that you might tell that, okay, just build the economy of Liverpool, and they will be looking at you like you're talking abracadabra. You get like, what are you even saying? This is just that we know, like, what do we have and all of those things. Somebody can decide to make a documentary on it, how Justin built Liverpool, and it becomes a thing, and that is archive for future generation. And tomorrow somebody can now say, I have receipts for this. The danger of not preserving our culture, of not preserving our heritage, of not documenting these things is that we are buying a coffin for the future generations. When I was a medical student, right?
You were a medical student?
I was a medical student before I left it for fame.
What?
Yes.
How? Why?
Okay, let me get into that story. I already know, like, by the time I graduate from this course, I'm not going to practice. So I had to make that choice, and fame won in the end.
Wow. How did your parents take that?
My mom.
So before we continue the episode, I would like to appeal to you to subscribe to the channel. We want to grow, we want to scale this thing all the way to the moon, and the only way you can help us do that is by hitting that subscribe button. Thank you. Let's get back to the episode. Ogochukwu Umeadi.
Yes.
You're welcome to the show.
Thank you so much. It's a pleasure being here.
Yes. You're wearing a shirt that says equal rights, equal bills, equal responsibilities.
Yes.
What do you mean?
Okay. It's actually a quote I came up with. I advocate for equality between the sexes. And usually when some people advocate for that, they draw the line when it comes to provision or bills, as they say, right? But I'm of the opinion that you don't have rights without responsibilities. The two go along. If you want your freedom to be taken seriously, then with the rights that comes to you, know that you will, need responsibilities to back that up. That's when people take you seriously.
So you are a filmmaker.
Yes.
But how do you describe yourself and what you do?
Okay. I'm a filmmaker, an indie filmmaker in Nigeria. So working as an indie filmmaker means you become a jack of many trades and then a master of some. Yeah. So presently, I'm a screenwriter, producer, director, and production designer. But many people know me more as a production designer because, like, I have fun whenever I design projects. Like, I feel like my brain is challenged whenever, like, a director sort of, like, gives me a project brief to say, oh, this is what I want you to design as a designer. I'm like, wow, let's do this. Like, even on my LinkedIn profile, I say, I'm a production designer that is looking for, like, fearless directors to design their stories, right? And when I talk of fearless directors, I mean, like, directors that are not afraid to say something, to push the boundaries. They're not afraid to experiment, whether, going back in time or going forward in time, or even doing something contemporary, but that pushes the conversation. So those are directors I'm eager and, willing to work for and work with to bring their projects to life.
What is your dream project? What kind of project do you think, if you do it, you will be satisfied?
When I saw the film Dune.
Dunes, yes.
When I saw Dune Part 2, right? I said, I will not be fulfilled as a filmmaker if I don't do something like this.
Wow.
I'm telling you. Because it's beautiful, it's dystopian. Those are, like, in my sort of, like, dream projects. Because as much as I'm a hopeful person, you understand, sometimes people get the message when you show them the consequences of their actions. That's where dystopian films comes to mind. Probably people have been living this way and Now, this is what is happening. People look at that and be like, okay, if we continue this way, this is what we are going to have. For anybody who is willing to do a Dune-like movie, a dystopian-like film, here am I. Use me. Like I'm really looking forward to doing it. And for designers like myself, like we are eager to find directors, producers that are willing to, push the boundaries, not just, be content with what we have. Because on my own as a designer, I might have these dreams of doing these things, but I might not necessarily have the money. I even want to like talk to directors or to producers or to, people that greenlight projects. Don't ever think like, oh, I have this and you think, can we do it? No. It's until you bring it, that's when we come in. That's when we begin to crack our brains, begin to research, begin to go into our archives, begin to go to different places to find out how we're going to do it. Just give us that challenge. We are sort of like bored.
Yeah.
We want something that will keep us engaged. One of my favorite dictums about design is like, design is intelligence having fun.
Intelligence having fun.
Yeah. For some people, having fun is probably going to clubs and all of that. But for somebody like me, my fun is, oh, this is a challenge, right? How are we going to, surmount that challenge and overcome it and then have something beautiful on screen? You've seen the Ibuku art, right? What if we go back to the civilization that bettered that art? The Nok culture.
Yes.
What if we take our stories back then?
So you did a film recently, No Let Them Die.
Yes.
Right? It's a documentary.
Yeah.
What is it about?
Okay, No Let Them Die is actually my appeal to Nigerians and the rest of the world, Africa in particular, because we are the people that are challenged with keeping records, with archiving our intangible heritage. So that's what the film is about. It's actually a plea, a call to say, please, all these intangible cultures that we have, intangible heritages that we have, right? We shouldn't let them die. We shouldn't let them go extinct. We shouldn't let them disappear. The way I see it, right, we don't know the value of these things. Because if we do, I don't think I would have a need to make the film. Because like, everybody will be doing it. The way I see these things, right, our intangible heritage, they are much more valuable than the oil that everybody is killing themselves over. These are artifacts, artworks, oral history, myths, legends, folklores. We might see them like, oh, these are stuff that nobody actually talks about again. But these are like billion-dollar heritages that we could actually record and preserve, that our future generations can actually, like, it's like your father actually bequeathing you something that is valuable.
Yeah.
You understand? That's how I see them. And the moment we start documenting them, our future generations will thank us. One of the quotes that one of my subjects actually told me while I was doing the documentary that has been haunting me. He said, the danger of not preserving our culture, of not preserving our heritage, of not documenting these things is that we are buying a coffin for the future generations.
Wow.
Without, like, we've dug a hole, we've bought their coffin, we just want them to come, we bury them. So when he said it, it has been haunting me. And that is why I made this film, so that I sort of like conscientize us to take these things not just serious, but see them as a form of wealth. And then, preserve them. Because if I say take them serious, some people will be like, what concerns me with culture? I'm not a cultural person, that sort of thing. But if I could relate it to wealth, then everybody wants to keep something for their future generations, or maybe something for themselves.
Yes.
Like that translates to Naira and Kobo. So once something is in that direction, people can now imagine, like, somebody has access to a story of let's say, tin mining in Jos in the 30s and 40s. And then they've recorded these things. And probably myself as a production designer is working on a project around that period. Like, I will pay to have whatever the person has recorded, be it films, be it photographs, be it oral history, just to have have a sense of that particular period in time. And once I do that, maybe whatever I have in my imagination can now be tailored towards doing these things. It's not like as designers we can't go fictional, but like even your fiction has to have some sort of historical grounding, some sort of references that you are building upon. So when you now introduce the fictional, like it's a sort of like you are building a bridge, right? You have two roads that, and with a space in between them, right? So the reference, let's say this is a reference, the bridge can now become the fiction, which when you put it together, it can connect. And it doesn't, like my people say, when something stands upon it. So the culture that you've archived, the heritage that you have archived is now something that future production designers can actually build on. And future storytellers, future creatives, future cultural workers, filmmakers, and what have you. Yeah. There are Gen Zs now that you might tell that, okay, just build the economy of Liverpool. And they'll be looking at you like you're talking abracadabra. You get like, what are you even saying? This is just that we know, like, what do we have and all of those things. As an Igbo man, there's this proverb in my dialect that says, if you don't know where like the rain started beating you, you don't know where it will end. Right? So bringing it to this situation, if you don't know what you've done or what you've achieved, you always think yourself small. For when I made mention that tin mining in just built Liverpool, right? If I go out there on social media to begin to, say it probably on Twitter, some people will be like, what's this guy talking about? Like, what evidence do you have, right? This is an actual fact. But because nobody has actually recorded that or done something on that, there's no way we can actually, prove it. In this present modern day social media age, when you are saying something, people will say, bring receipts. So if those things have actually been archived, it would have been like a form of like visual receipts in form of films, photographs, books, compendiums, and what have you. Right now, everybody have access to like the greatest technology in the hands of man, smartphone. And with that, we could actually take a record of anything we want to. We either post it on social media or we put it on Google Drive for ourselves and the future generation. Right? With that now, talking about how just built Liverpool. If by the time this podcast gets out, right, people will say, this guy is capping. You understand? But I can tell you for a fact that if we begin to research it, it might actually be true. And how did I get to know about it? Because somebody told me.
Yes.
And because somebody told me, I'm now on this podcast telling the rest of the world. That's the way somebody can actually watch this podcast and begin to say, okay, let me find out whatever this guy is saying is true. And then they can begin to research it. And somebody can decide to make a documentary on it. How Justin built Liverpool. And it becomes a thing. And that is archived for future generation. And tomorrow somebody can now say, I have receipts for this.
You seem to be a very diligent person when it comes to how you do your work, because I know production designers will have to be people who have eye for details, right?
Yeah.
I'm wondering, that kind of work attitude or culture is not prevalent in the Nigerian space.
Yeah. Okay. My philosophy about work, right? I sort of like take it from the Puritans, who says like, to work is to pray.
To pray.
Yeah, to work is to pray. Like, every time I'm on the set, right? I take it like this is my way of worshiping God through the work of my hands, because He is the one that gave me these gifts. So if I don't apply it diligently, then which account am I going to give to Him? But if I do it and do it to the best of my ability, then I can say, God, these gifts that you gave to me, these are what I've done with it. So when I see people pray, like they kneel down, they fast, when I walk, that's also me praying. And when I do that, it gives me joy. Like I feel fulfilled doing that.
Worship.
It's a form of worship for me. So, and sometimes people look at you and like, oh, how much are you paid on this set? Why will you do this? And they don't get it. Because as much as the person I'm working for is actually rewarding me with maybe 2 or 3 pennies, God, who sees in truth and spirit, is the ultimate rewarder. So whatever I'm paid on set or not paid on set, it's to God.
Yeah.
So He rewards. So anything the person I'm working for is giving me is just like how we say in Nigerian parlance, it's just jara. So the person I'm working for is God.
A lot of people leave their work and they go during working hours. They prefer to go to a church, to go to pray, and you go to offices and people are leaving their work in the name of fellowship. Right?
Yeah.
And or going from one ministry to the other and hoping that is that is what God wants from them.
Yeah.
Right? As opposed to being diligent in their own work.
Yeah. There was this TED talk I listened to by Robert Greene. He said, the key to transformation is through your work. Right?
Wow.
A lot of people, like most of the problems we have in this world today, is a lot of people being bored with their work.
Bored with their work.
Bored with their work. Like, you just come to the office, probably, like, let me use our own civil service culture, for example. Somebody clocks in at 9 a.m. and they're supposed to, like, minutes on some file, submit it to another person for, onward approval or something. But the files are sitting on their desk and they look at it. To them, it's not challenging them enough. So what they go is like, they go to another office. They are maybe gossiping or maybe gisting about football or something. And in the process, they are eating granuts. And before you know, it's 12. Before you know, it's, 5. And they go home. When I was a medical student, right?
You were a medical student?
I was a medical student before I left it for fame.
What?
Yes.
How? Why?
Okay. Let me get into that story. One of my professors came to class and said, mind you, this is a professor of respiratory physiology. This is a man at the height of his career. Came to class and, in the course of his lecture, he said, if he had known, he would have actually studied electrical engineering.
Wow.
And I'm like, wow. A professor saying this. And I looked at myself at that particular point in my time. I already know, like, I wouldn't practice medicine. Like, while I was in secondary school, I was intelligent enough to get admitted into the course. And then by the time I came into the course, I realized that medicine is not all about intelligence. You have to have the heart for it.
Okay.
The passion for it too has to be there. So it's not just like, you are very good with biology, you're very good with chemistry, you are very good with all of this. And then you're coming to class. No. There comes a time that intelligence stops and then passion kicks in. So if the passion is not there, then no matter how sound academically you are, you won't. So I already know, like, by the time I graduate from this course, I'm not going to practice. So what happened was that When that professor actually made that, I looked at myself, I'm like, how many lives do I have? One. So what do I have to do? Do I have to use this life to do what I enjoy, right? Or do I use that to do what I don't enjoy but I might be intelligent at doing? So I have to make that choice. And film won in the end.
Wow. How did your parents take that?
Obviously, like my mom, like every right thinking normal mom would think, oh, our village people are at work, right? But my dad like sort of like looked at me and felt like whatever I'm thinking, there might be a method to this madness. And he sort of like believed me. Like, okay, you wanted to do this. I just believe you have a plan. And right now, I'm in film. I'm doing the film. They are seeing my works and what I've been able to achieve so far. And they're like, okay. But for a very long time, when I was still, in film school, it felt like I did the most horrible mistake you can think of. Like I was just flailing around the area. But I guess probably right now, the dots are beginning to connect. And I have like my classmates who we all studied medicine together. Like they are doing bigger things. Not some, most are not in Nigeria. Most are like abroad and what have you. And once in a while, like they go through my social media pages and they are like, I think you made the right choice. Because if you are still with us, I don't know what the present state of your mental health would have been. You get.
So before we continue the episode, I would like to appeal to you to subscribe to the channel. We want to grow, we want to scale this thing all the way to the moon. And the only way you can help us do that is by hitting that subscribe button. Thank you. Let's get back to the episode. Do you at some point sit down to say you wish you continued in medicine?
I've never actually regretted it for a bit.
Never.
Like, ever since I left, right? Maybe once in a while, like you go like, okay, maybe if you're a doctor, like life would have been soft and all of that. But everything in this world is not all about riches. There's a statement that Spike Lee actually makes. Said, if you are in this world and you're able to like earn a living doing what you love, you already won. Like, whenever I listen to that statement, like it gladdens my heart because being a filmmaker, working as a production designer in film, actually gets me going. When I sleep at night, when I think about some things at night, these are things that keeps me awake at night. If I'm a doctor, I think I would have been grossly unfulfilled. I'll be this sort of doctor that probably, attends to patients, his mind is somewhere else. And that is what I was trying to prevent.
Wow.
And I think people should actually, if they have the courage to, do the same choice. Because right now, I'm not as rich as Dangote. I'm not as rich as Otedola. But in terms of fulfillment, I am super, super fulfilled. I wouldn't live this life for any other life. Like this creative life of going over screenplays because I want to design them. Or probably I see something, I'm like, this should actually be on screen.
There are lots of people who are confused, probably because they are trying to fit into certain shoes that is not theirs.
Yes.
In terms of career.
Yeah.
Career is something that we don't often talk about.
Yeah.
And people just grow up in families where they've already curated
the career for them.
what they're going to be doing. And switching or changing is a no-go area.
Yes.
Like I'm curious. Were your parents that easy for you to switch, or did you have some trouble?
Okay, here is let me give my own story, right? Or my perspective to it. So I grew up in a family of, intelligent people. I grew up learning that my dad was like one of the most intelligent people in his class. right? My dad didn't go to what we call conventional secondary school. He was supposed to go to CIC Enugu, but the Civil War truncated his education. So he had to like go learn a trade, became an apprentice, and then started doing what's it called again? Started selling building materials, right? So that's like what I knew of. So, and my mom too wasn't opportune to go to university, though she finished secondary school, wrote WAEC, passed in flying colors. But during their own time, the craze wasn't really to go to university. It's like, okay, here is, a beautiful young maiden. My dad also is a businessman, so just get married, give birth to kids and all of that, right? So I believe like they have the hope that their kids will now do what they didn't get to do. And growing up in such a family, I was, inculcated the fact that the way to rise is through your education. So I took my book seriously. And it's even somehow easy because I can call myself someone who is book smart. I could go to school and I learn, I pass my exams very well and all of that, right? So when it comes to making a choice for career, right? Like, I could remember in secondary school, I wanted to be a lot of things. Like, that's one thing I was sure of. But there was this doctor that came to our school one time and I saw how gentle he was, how his courage and all of that. So I felt like this is a career that suits me based on that fact. Not based on probably whether I might really enjoy doing this, right? So, and even when it comes to guidance and counseling in terms of career, I would say like my school did a poor job of that because I grew up knowing that when you get to SS2, you're going to submit your career choice to the guidance and counselor, and then they will now place you in a science class or in an arts class, right? And, being somebody who is book smart, you rose through JSS1 to probably SS2, having A's, B's, and all of those things. So like, when you say you want to go to a science class, nobody actually, stops you.
Questions,
in fact,
yeah,
like people look at you like people that should be in the science class. Exactly. And when it was time to make that career, to say, okay, I'm going to study medicine because everybody's studying medicine, like it was very easy. And when I saw the admission, I think I tried twice. It was on the third time I got in. And I'm like, I'm set. I did the the way it's called in the program is like, it's not yet pre-med. Pre-med is like when you finish your 100 level and you go over to the medical school. That's when you become a pre-med. So while in the pre-med, that's when you start to study anatomy, physiology, and biochemistry, right? So it was while doing that, like academically, I'm studying these things. But then I noticed that things in the arts appeal to me. I am this kind of person that maybe in the middle of physiology class, I'm giving you reference, I'm quoting poetry for you. I'm talking about Dante. And people will be like, we don't understand this guy. You shame and medicine, you the study. Like, why will you be curious about, Aristotle, Plato, their philosophies and all of those things, right? Like, already, while doing that, I looked into myself and I'm like, I wouldn't want to practice this when I graduate. In fact, whenever I'm talking to young people, what I always ask them is like, what do you want to be in future, right? And maybe the person like tells me, okay, this is what I'm studying. I always ask, do you want to retire from, is there a day that you want to stop doing this? Like you want to like say, I'm no longer doing this, I've retired. Then if you say yes, I'll tell you that's not the right career for you. Because anything you are doing that you want to leave and say, I'm no longer working again, then I think somebody said, when you discover what you want to do, you stop working. Right? Because when I discovered film, like coming from medicine to film, like when I was in med school, right, I used to read very well. Like I go over textbooks like I chew textbooks. When I was in SS1, right, I finished Oseiyo Ababu. That's new school chemistry
In SS1.
in SS1.
That's
Like I finished the
incredible.
textbook in SS1. So coming to med school, I'm like, it's just rote reading. But
Yeah.
there comes a point that academic journey, like just reading this thing and just passing, doesn't really matter again. What matters is the passion, the practice, like you get. But when I came to film school, I realized like I don't even read as much. But then I'm practicing, I'm curious, I want to do this, I want to solve this problem. And as I'm doing that, for some people who are not cut out for fame, right? When they meet those things, that's like the challenge that stops them, that's, they don't want to do again. They are tired. But for me, I'm like, okay, this thing doesn't work this way. How can we make it work? Like, I want to know more. I want to research more. I want to see what other people are doing in their fields in order to solve this problem. So you are seeing how these things converge and diverge. Because if it was me in medicine, maybe there is a setback or something. I'll be like, waiting concern me, like, you understand? But since in film, I want to, and it's not something I want to retire from. I want to keep doing this till I go back to God to say, Father, whatever you sent me to do, I've done it.
Mr. Ogochukwu, your story is amazing.
Thank you.
In my own case,
Yeah.
it took my dad to kind of recalibrate my vision and my
Yeah.
dream. Because I was struggling. I wanted to be a doctor. I was struggling with the
Wow.
sciences. a
Wow.
bit. Yes. And he looked at me one day and he said, I see you. I don't see a doctor. I see somebody who is passionate about storytelling. And he mentioned movie making,
Movie making.
to be precise. And that was when the scales fell off
Fell
my
off your eyes.
And then-
Wow.
Yes.
Wow. Wow.
And
Wow.
I have not regretted
Wow.
ever since.
I encourage parents like that, right? When I
Yeah.
came to film school, there are these colleagues that I met, right? The Danan brothers. Whenever they are doing stuff in school, then their parents always come around.
Twansen and
Twansan and
Twansen.
Twansan. And in my mind, I'm like, like normally, like I know, like for secondary school, primary school, like you are doing stuff and your parents are always coming. But for film school, you are doing stuff and your parents are coming, always supporting you, relatives and all of that. I'm like, wow, I really, really admire your parents. It's not like my parents don't do that. My parents are like business people. They always go to their shop and all of that. Like when I'm doing something, they are in support. Like they can support me with financially and all of this thing. But like to have them come around, that's a different sort of support, right? And which brings me to parents. Sometimes watch your kids closely. There are some things they are good at. Like I grew up drawing really fascinating stuff. In fact, one of the people I drew with while in primary school, right, is today a professional artist. Like he finished secondary school and then went to art school, and he has, done lots of exhibitions in Nigeria and outside the country, right? But for me, it was like a whole roundabout. The secondary school I went to doesn't offer any art course. Like, it's sort of like drawing and all of that. So I grew up in primary school being the kid that drew murals on the wall for different classes, to not drawing for 6 years except in biology and all of those drawings. So when I want to pick that up after secondary school, I struggled. But coming to film school, I'm seeing this stuff called production design, where you draw, you paint, you explore and do all manner of things. I'm like, wow, are you kidding me? In fact, one of the things that drew me to film school was screenwriting. And I came to film school as a screenwriter. And I also want to use this as a medium to like sound a warning to people that used to say, oh, the intelligent students are in science class, while the unintelligent one are in art class. I was having an argument with somebody who's a senior colleague, and they were trying to impress on me the point that what has to be studied is science and not art. So I told them that the neurons that are firing in the brain of a poet while they are writing lines of poetry is the same neuron that fires in the brain of a physicist while they are writing different equations, trying to solve a problem. So
Yes.
no form of intelligence
It's inferior.
is inferior to the other. Just whatever you are doing, use it to solve a problem that benefits humanity, society. So you can't say I'm a scientist and this is an artist, I'm superior to him. No. If I do my art very well, I could stand shoulder to shoulder to you as a scientist and we could rub minds together, agree or disagree.
You know, I like this point because
Yeah.
there was a time I I told someone, I said, what we do as filmmakers,
Yeah.
brain surgeons, you can't do it.
Exactly.
I've been on a film set where for a full 1 week, we're only getting 1 hour sleep per day,
Per day.
right? We're
Yeah.
working like people who were drunk on something,
Yes.
right?
Yes.
Tirelessly trying to birth this story and make it
bring
alive,
it to life.
you know?
Exactly.
Yeah,
Exactly.
so it only takes people with resilience, confidence, and,
you
know,
audacity, endurance.
Yeah.
You understand? Like sometimes surgeons, like when it comes to medicine, right? Surgeons are looked upon as gods.
Yeah.
Because sometimes they are like the macho people of medicine. Because sometimes you find out a surgery took probably like long hours. And there are some that, you have like different shifts. This team comes in, does this. The other parts comes in, does this. You get the cardiothoracic surgeon does this. The general surgeon does this. The like different specialists.
Yeah.
The brain surgeon comes and do this and all of those things, right? Like that's the same way when you're on a film set, right? You have this sort of like elaborate, setup with, different takes, maybe a VFX shot and all of that. That's the same way different artists comes and do their thing and leave. And sometimes people will watch these things on screen and they're like, no be film. Like, you understand? But what it took to actually achieve that. Like in film, I tell people like, it's not like you can do this, then you should not come and do it in film. No. The thing is, can you be able to withstand when the director tells you, I want this thing in the next 5 minutes. I want this thing in the next 5 seconds. When people say, can you work under pressure? I'm like, in design, that is like the headquarters of pressure. And I'm glad like I actually entered filmmaking through this route because it has, made me a better producer. And it will also make me a better director when I begin to direct. Because in design, I tell my design team like we are like miracle workers. After God, we are next. Because what productions might think is impossible, I and my design team can be able to replicate that.
Yeah.
So God himself is the ultimate designer. So we take after him. And where the Bible says, with God, all things are possible. So that's the belief we come to on set, that whatever the production wants, whatever the director wants, we can be able to achieve that. We don't take no for an answer. Just say, this is what I want. And we begin to rally around to do it.
Wow.
Yeah.
Thank you so much, Ogochukwu,
You're
for
welcome.
stopping by.
You're welcome.
And for sharing these deep personal stories and thoughts.
My
this
pleasure.
will go a long way, I know, to encourage someone to kind of begin to veer on the right path.
True.
Yeah.
True.
Thank you so much for coming.
It's been a pleasure. And if I were to say any last words, I'm like, I just want to re-echo the words of Spike Lee, who said, if you're able to earn a living doing what you love, you've already won.
Yeah.